In 1885, Russia banned this painting from being exhibited and ordered its immediate removal, fearing it might spark a revolution. Since then, it has become one of the most controversial paintings in history, facing attacks, insults, and even accusations of falsifying Russian history. In 1913, it suffered its first assault when a man attacked the artwork, stabbing it 3 times under the pretense that the horrifying scene depicted did not align with reality and deserved to be destroyed. The painting in question is the famous Ivan the Terrible and His Son, painted by Ilya Repin in 1885. It captures the precise moment right after the Tsar ended his son's life with a blow to the temple in a fit of rage. The man is shown devastated, having committed one of the most atrocious acts a human being can carry out, taking the life of his own child. Fortunately, the painting was able to be restored after the first attack and is now on public display, though the controversy around it remains more alive than ever. In today's video, I'll tell you the story of this controversial painting and reveal why the Russian government wanted it banned from public view. Let's begin. The protagonists of this painting, as the title itself indicates, are Ivan IV Vasilievich, known as Ivan the Terrible, and his son, Ivan Ivanovich. To understand this scene, we need to transport ourselves to 16th century Russia, as it was during that period that the events depicted here unfolded, though the painting itself was created 300 years later. What truly happened on the night of November 16, 1581, remains a mystery. Historians have developed 3 theories attempting to explain what might have happened and what led to the death of Ivan Ivanovich. In the first theory, it's said that Ivan the Terrible arrived at the palace and found his daughter-in-law, his son's wife, dressed in a way he deemed inappropriate. Without a second thought, he struck her, angered by what he saw as disrespect. The impact was devastating, not only physically but emotionally, as the woman was pregnant and lost her unborn child because of the blow. The next day, Ivan Ivanovich, already deeply wounded in his pride and tired of his father's constant interference, confronted the Tsar. This wasn't the first time Ivan the Terrible had intruded in his son's relationships. He had already confined his son's 2 previous wives to convents, and this third woman seemed destined to suffer a similar fate. The argument intensified until Ivan the Terrible, blinded by rage, struck his son on the temple, ending his life in an instant. Another theory presents a less violent scenario, suggesting that Ivan the Terrible was not responsible for his son's death. Russian chroniclers mention a letter in which the Tsar excused himself from traveling to Moscow, explaining that his son was ill. However, the Tsar never clarified what illness his son was suffering from, and in this version, Ivan Ivanovich is believed to have died from natural causes. This theory suggests that the story of murder is simply a myth, constructed around Ivan the Terrible's fearsome reputation and the tense relationship he shared with his son. Here, the drama between father and son could have been exaggerated into legend, amplifying the Tsar's infamous cruelty without factual basis. The final theory, and the one that inspired Ilya Repin's famous painting, tells that Ivan Ivanovich, deeply committed to Russia's honor, had requested that his father allow him to lead the army to expel the country's enemies and restore the nation's prestige. But this request enraged the Tsar. In a fit of rage, the Terrible raised his hand and struck his son on the temple, accidentally inflicting a fatal blow. This accidentally must be taken with a grain of salt. The moment he saw his son collapse to the ground and begin to bleed, his anger disappeared. The Tsar turned pale, took his son in his arms, and filled with regret, cried out in agony, "I have killed my son." Sobbing, he clung desperately to the life he had taken. This theory shows a more human side of Ivan the Terrible, revealing the remorse and love he deeply felt for his son. It's this final version that Repin captured in his work, seizing the heartbreaking moment of Ivan's despair, as we can clearly see in the expression he painted. Now, the big question remains, which of these theories is the correct one? Well, it turns out that, recently, evidence suggests that none of these theories are actually correct, but that's a topic we'll discuss a little later. In 1882, Ilya Repin began working on this painting. His motivation to tackle such a tragic and violent subject did not arise from mere historical curiosity. Rather, it was driven by the traumatic context he experienced firsthand. Shortly before starting this painting, Repin had witnessed devastating events, including the assassination of Tsar Alexander II, an attack that profoundly impacted all of Russia. This regicide not only shook the stability of the empire, but also left an indelible mark on Repin, as he witnessed the public execution of the perpetrators and accomplices of the attack. The image of the condemned with a sign on their chest reading "Regicide" was etched into his memory, highlighting the brutality with which justice responded to crimes against the monarchy. In such a dark moment of Russian history, Repin decided to explore the figure of Ivan the Terrible, another leader marked by tragedy and violence, depicting a scene that had occurred 300 years earlier but resonated with the recent death of a Tsar. Repin mentions in his memoirs that the brutality in the painting was also inspired by events he witnessed during his travels through Western Europe, such as bullfights. It was there that he drew on the blood pools in the sand to convey the emotional impact of the scene, using blood to emphasize Ivan IV's suffering and remorse as he cradles his dying son. The work was both an emotional and technical challenge, and its creation caused him great anguish. He even grew disappointed and decided to hide the painting from his friends. Repin began painting this work in 1882. In these initial sketches, we can already see how Repin intended to focus on the intensity of Ivan's gaze, whose pain and desperation after the irreversible act of killing his own son were the core of the scene he aimed to capture. One central element in these sketches, which would eventually be prominently integrated into the final work, is Ivan's scepter. This object is no coincidence in the composition. In two of the theories suggesting Ivan committed the murder of his son, it's mentioned that the Tsar used the scepter to strike his son on the temple, a fatal blow that resulted in his death. For this reason, Repin included the scepter in every version of the scene. In the initial sketches, it is held by the Tsar, while in the final version, it lies discarded on the floor. In this final version, Ivan is limited to holding his son's body, who lies dying in his arms. Perhaps Repin sought to intensify the drama of the scene, focusing on the remorse rather than on the crime just committed. The painting was first exhibited in 1885, generating polarized reactions among the public and critics alike. Some, like Repin's friend Ivan Ivanovich, whom we mentioned in the previous video, considered it a true masterpiece. Ivanovich saw in the painting a masterful representation of human anguish and tragedy, appreciating Repin's ability to capture a moment of emotional devastation with such intensity. However, not all reactions were positive. One of the most vehement critics was Konstantin Pobedonostsev, an influential advisor to the Tsar and a staunch defender of orthodoxy and traditional values in Russia. Pobedonostsev dismissed the painting as pure fantasy and strongly opposed its public display, arguing that depicting Ivan the Terrible in such a brutal act was inappropriate. The controversy quickly reached the authorities, and just a few days after the opening, the Russian government ordered the painting removed from the exhibition and banned any future display. The official reason for this censorship was that showing a Russian Tsar committing parricide was damaging to the monarchy's reputation, especially as Ivan Ivanovich's murder was still an unproven theory. This work was based on the third theory surrounding the Tsarevich's death, but there was no conclusive evidence to justify such a portrayal. This ban was a blow to Repin, who had spent years working on the painting to capture the complex relationship between father and son and the tragedy of Ivan the Terrible. Months after the initial ban, the painting was re-exhibited thanks to the intervention of Alexei Bogolyubov, a painter close to the imperial court. Through his connections, Bogolyubov managed to convince the authorities to allow the painting's display once again. However, this decision did not quell the controversy. The more orthodox sectors in Russia continue to disapprove of a Tsar being depicted in such a violent and desperate act. Since then, the painting has been seen as cursed due to repeated attacks it has suffered. The first occurred in 1913, when a 29-year-old iconoclast infiltrated the gallery and stabbed the canvas 3 times, nearly destroying it completely. Fortunately, Repin was still alive and personally oversaw the restoration, though the attack left a profound mark on the painting's history. Tragically, the gallery curator guarding the work, upon hearing the news of the damage, took his own life by jumping in front of a train, a fact that has added to the dark mystique surrounding the piece. The second attack took place relatively recently, in 2013, when the painting once again became the target of a visitor's rage. This time, a man slashed the canvas several times and, upon arrest, explained that he had felt an uncontrollable fury at the sight of the scene. Shouting, "Ivan never killed his son," he attacked the painting as if defending the Tsar's image. Luckily, the cuts were not too deep, which made restoration easier. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, none of the three theories I discussed earlier could be verified. However, a few years ago, Russia was able to determine what may have actually caused the death of Ivan the Terrible's son. But before I explain it, I'd like to take a moment, as always, to remind you that this painting is available to decorate your home. On our website, you'll find a catalogue with over 450 historical paintings in different sizes and finishes, so you can choose your favorite and own a piece like this for a lifetime. Shipping is completely free worldwide. And by purchasing through the website, you'll be supporting this channel so I can continue making videos like this one. The link is in the description. In 1963, a commission was appointed to conduct an autopsy on the remains of Ivan the Terrible and his son. In their report, they stated that both bodies contained mercury levels 32 times higher than average, giving rise to a new theory. Some of the more traditional voices clung to the idea that the Tsar hadn't killed his son and that he had instead been poisoned. Let's remember that the second theory suggested the son was ill, though it didn't specify the cause. However, this mercury could also have a logical explanation. The Tsar suffered from syphilis, and at the time, mercury was a common treatment for this illness. In fact, some say this treatment was also why Ivan was so feared. The mercury could have caused brain damage, leading to constant mood swings and euphoric, psychotic episodes. But I'll leave it to you to judge whether this theory seems more realistic. I'd love to read your opinions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to see 2 more videos like this each week. See you in the next video.